In the last video, you learned about Donder's 1868 reaction time experiment. There are three other initial cognitive psychologists we're going to review: Wilhelm Wundt of Germany, Ebbinghaus and his forgetting curve, and then James and the principles of psychology. So Wilhelm Wundt in 1897 established the first psychology laboratory that we know of, and this was at the University of Leipzig in Germany. Wundt did reaction time experiments as well, but his approach was a method called analytic introspection, and in general the approach is called structuralism. So the idea that our senses and sensations that we experience determine our overall experience. And analytic introspection allowed Wundt to look at how participants responded to stimuli through their sensations. So what did they see, hear, feel, smell, perhaps taste? I'm not sure if that was in the reaction time experiments. But how did those sensations come together to form an experience? Both a little bit before and a little bit after, Ebbinghaus was busy working on an experiment that would show the kind of first memory experiment, so what contributes to memory. And what Ebbinghaus did was he read a list of nonsense syllables aloud, and this was just to himself, and he wanted to know how many times did he need to repeat that without receiving any errors. So he trained himself on nonsense syllables like these: lop, wag, lag, bit, tab. And he had to remember those in some order. What happened was, if the time was a short delay, like 19 minutes, he remembered significantly more than if 6 days had passed. Now, a lot of these early experiments now to us seem like common sense. Like, of course you're going to remember something that happened more recently than something that happened long ago. But we wanted to establish these in the world of psychology and really learn about what happens, why do we forget things. And the interesting part of this is that a curve came out of this, and this is Ebbinghaus's savings curve. So he considered the amount of words or nonsense syllables he could remember to be a measure of the amount remembered. So after 19 minutes there was 60% savings. After an hour there was about 45% savings. After 8 hours, 37% savings, and so forth. And you see that levels out then. So after 2 days, 6 days, or 31 days, you kind of remember about the same amount of that list. So Ebbinghaus replicated this many times, and this is now a famous cognitive experiment. The last person we'll talk about in this video is William James, who wrote The Principles of Psychology. And this is the first time an American comes on the scene. He was an early American psychologist who taught at Harvard University, and he again used himself as a subject, and he made observations about the functions of his own mind. So kind of similar to that analytic introspection, he thought in a meta kind of way. He thought about how he thinks. He thought about what consciousness was, what attention is, memory, etc. And so this was one of the early writings on cognitive psychology. And next we will talk about how the psychology timeline progressed to behaviorism.